President Trump continues to turn Washington upside down. The announcement of a temporary pause on federal grants, loans, and financial assistance programs sparked a fierce debate.
Well, Republicans say it's a necessary review of government spending, while Democrats warn it could disrupt vital services. Last night, a federal judge blocked the measure. George Thomas reports.
U.S. District Judge Loren Ali Khan paused the president's funding freeze order until February 3rd, saying that courts need time to weigh its potential implications. Republicans disagree with the ruling, arguing that the freeze is part of the administration's plan to conduct a 90-day across-the-board review of government spending.
This is a work in progress. Everybody take a deep breath, stay calm. Every one of these programs is going to be looked at. He didn't say, well, we're going to do a 2-year study, blah, blah, blah. He said 90 days, we're going to look at it, and it's working.
The president signed executive orders in recent days targeting the Biden administration's funding of progressive causes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon.
The new White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, in her first briefing, insisted that funding for Social Security, Medicare, food stamps, student loans, and scholarships will not be affected.
What does this pause mean? It means no more funding for illegal DEI programs. It means no more funding for the Green New scam that has cost American taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. It means no more funding for transgenderism and wokeness across our federal bureaucracy and agencies.
Democrats are pushing back, saying the funding freeze is causing chaos and panic among organizations that rely on Washington for their financial lifeline.
Blast radius of this terrible, unconstitutional, and illegal decision is virtually limitless.
The president of Catholic Charities warned in a memo that the federal freeze could impact the work they do with the poor and vulnerable. The New York chapter of Catholic Charities was affected on Tuesday when the Head Start portal went offline temporarily. Medicaid portals in several states also reported lockouts. Late yesterday, the president made another big move, offering most federal workers a buyout if they resign within the next few weeks, in an apparent effort to shrink the size of the government. Meanwhile, newly appointed DHS Secretary Kristi Noem joined ICE agents on their first major crackdown on illegal immigrants in New York City. Posting on X, Secretary Noem said several individuals were apprehended, including a ringleader of a Venezuelan gang.
Here in New York City this morning, we are getting the dirtbags off these streets.
Today in the Senate, one of President Trump's most controversial nominees, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., begins hearings for Secretary of Health and Human Services. George Thomas, CBN News.
Well, Kelly Wright is our CBN White House correspondent and joins us now from our bureau in Washington. So, Kelly, what about this proposed buyout of federal employees? What are the details and what is it expected to accomplish?
Well, it's expected to accomplish a deferred resignation of these employees. They received it from the OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, in an email form stating that they have the responsibility to look at the email and they have to reply to it by February 6th. If they want to resign, if they choose to do that, they can actually sign that, send it in saying, I choose to resign, and they'll be able to stay at home and not be forced to return to work. They can resist all those orders of the president stating that he wants all federal employees to come back and work in these office buildings throughout the United States, as well as here in Washington, D.C. The mayor of Washington, D.C. stating that she would like to see more federal workers return here because it's good for business for the constituents of D.C. The bottom line is that many people are wondering, how is this going to be paid for, though, Gordon, because the CR is coming up in March, and they have to figure out how they're going to really be able to pay them through September.
Well, that's been the allegation that, you know, don't take the offer because you're not going to get paid. Well, what's the payout term? Is it 8 months?
It's through September, and they'll receive their money through September, and after that, they'll be officially resigned and retired from the federal government, and they will be able to go out and seek other positions and other jobs throughout the country.
Well, the immigration raids are targeting criminals, but I'm hearing about collateral damage, that people who aren't criminals are being arrested. Is that the case?
It is the case. We've seen that on some of the notable raids that have taken place in places like Newark, New Jersey, as well as Boston and New York City, where they've gone after hardened criminals who already have a track record of being people who have committed heinous crimes in their own country. And as a result of that, they might be staying with particular people who have not committed any crimes, but are here illegally. And Tom Homan has already said that those particular people will be arrested along with everybody else. It kind of goes to what I remember my mother telling me as a child. If you're with someone who's guilty, you're guilty by association. And the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt addressing that issue about this collateral damage and about those being arrested and deported, talking about that in the White House press briefing just yesterday, her first one. Here's what she said.
He is focused on launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history of illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal. And so therefore, you are subject to deportation.
So, Gordon, that's the bottom line from President Trump. He's fulfilling his campaign promise on mass deportation and to do something about securing America's borders, southern and northern. The bottom line, as you heard from Caroline Leavitt, if you step across that line and you do not have the papers, you can be deported.
Well, let's talk about another campaign issue, and that was anything involving transgender. The latest executive order restricts medical procedures for minors seeking gender transition. Tell us more about that and why he's focusing on it.
Well, Gordon, I'm holding it in my hand here. It's actually called Protecting Children from Chemical and Surgical Mutilation. This is the exact executive order. And I'm going to read this real quickly because I think it's very important and germane to what the president is seeking to do. He says, across the country today, medical professionals are maiming and sterilizing a growing number of impressionable children under the radical and false claim that adults can change a child's sex through a series of irreversible medical interventions. This dangerous trend will be a stain on our nation's history, and it must be stopped. And that's exactly what the president is trying to do with his executive order, to actually protect the children of America, those who are 18 and younger. And actually, it leads to gender dysphoria, and that's something that they want to address. Parents have talked about it throughout the campaign when President-elect Trump when President Trump was campaigning, and he is basically making a promise and keeping that promise.
Well, any other promises to look forward to? It seems like every single news cycle, there's this whole series of things. It's absolutely amazing, the transformation that's happening in the federal government, literally day by day. Any predictions for tomorrow?
You know, you have me smiling because I have no predictions except that this president, as you and I talked about when he was elected on November 5th, you and I remember talking about the fact that strap on, put your seatbelts on. This is going to be quite a ride, and it is becoming exactly what you and I have discussed back then. And it's no stretch of the imagination. This president is really going at a blitzkrieg type of path to try to really make effective government. That's what he wants to do. That's why he's Doge. That's why he's making all these changes. And actually dealing with those who are questioning him. He will be fought by Democrats and about various groups that dislike him and dislike his program, and they'll try to hold him accountable as well.
Well, one of my big issues is the runaway deficit, and my hope is in all of these pauses of federal programs that we can actually balance a budget, because if we don't, I don't see a very bright economic future if we keep on spending ourselves into this kind of hole. Are we going to see that? Is that the net impact of these things?
Well, keep in mind that he is going to be introducing bills. He wants a big bill or maybe 2 tranches of bills that will actually deal with the federal deficit. We're $36 trillion in debt. The president has to get Republicans in the House and the Senate, as well as some Democrats, to agree with his plans to deal with that. And that's another reason why this temporary pause was suggested, because he wanted to examine the efficiency of government to make sure that taxpayers' dollars are not being filtered away on needless programs like the Green New Deal, like DEI. And that's why he's dispensing with a lot of those through executive action. At some point, Congress will have to step in and support the president with laws that will deal with our budget and get beyond the continuing resolution, but actually start stripping away and cutting away the $36 trillion debt that this country has. Otherwise, everything that he's doing, if we can't afford it, it will be for naught.
All right. Well, Kelly, thanks for the insight. You're going to have a very busy year.